Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Patriot's History of the United States. I'm Larry Swikart, co-author of Patriot's History with Michael Allen, now in its 20th anniversary edition. If you are a member of our newsletter list, make sure you sign up at thewildworldofhistory.com. You will get a copy of the 20th anniversary edition PDF that we will make available to all of our members. It's a new chapter from 2018 to 23, and it includes inserts, about 20 pages of inserts of new material for the rest of the book. But you do need to have the 15th anniversary edition physical book in order to know where all the inserts go and not have to figure it out. All right, we are in the Civil War chapter, which is chapter 9, I think, and it's the crisis of the Union, and we are on the Georgia debate on secession, 1860. And I am taking this from the Patriot's History Reader today, which is what I am reading from. With the election of Abraham Lincoln on the presidency to the presidency in November of 1860, secessionist movements began in all the southern states. Although there was no typical legislative action, in Georgia, a committee of the legislature arranged for a debate to take place over the proper course for Georgia between separatists and cooperationists, their terms for secessionists and unionists. The speakers were Thomas R. Cobb, Robert Toombs, and Henry Benning for the separatists, Alexander Stephens and Benjamin Hill for the cooperationists. Toombs and Stephens were the primary antagonists, both leading statesmen and both very close friends. Toombs is a gifted orator who probably would have become president of the Confederacy had he not fallen victim to backroom dealings by Thomas R. Cobb and had to settle for being the Confederacy's first Secretary of State and a brigadier general. Stephens became the Confederacy's vice president. Their stature added to the importance of their speeches. Other states approached secession with caution, as in Arkansas, where the legislature initially voted to remain in the Union. South Carolina, on the other hand, took the lead in voting to secede. The 7 states of the Deep South, from South Carolina to Texas, voted to secede during the winter before Lincoln took office, and the Upper South, including Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Arkansas, followed after Lincoln called for troops to defend the Union. The arguments across the South echoed the Georgia debate, and some states, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Virginia, furnished troops to the Union in surprising numbers. Did you know that the Confederacy actually supplied troops to the Union? The South had lost the population battle and with it control of Congress. Would any argument have prevailed in the Georgians to remain in the Union? Was there really any alternative to secession given that the South wanted to maintain slavery? And would a confederation have been ultimately viable in the long run? So here is the argument for secession, Robert Toombs. I very much regret in appearing before you at your request to address you on the present state of our country and the prospect before us that I can bring you no good tidings. I mean, he knew this was not going to be good. The stern, steady march of events has brought us in conflict with our non-slave holding Confederates upon the fundamental principles of the Compact of Union. We have not sought this conflict. We have sought too long to avoid it. Our forbearance has been construed into weakness, our magnanimity into fear, until the vindication of our manhood as well as defense of our rights is required at our hands. The door of conciliation and compromise is finally closed by our adversaries, and it remains only to us to meet the conflict with dignity and firmness of men worthy of freedom. We need no declaration of independence. Above 84 years ago, our fathers won that by the sword from Great Britain, and above 70 years ago, Georgia, with 12 other Confederates, as free, sovereign, and independent states, having perfect governments already in existence for purposes clearly defined, erected a common agent for the attainment of these purposes by the exercise of their powers, called this agent the United States of America. The basis, the cornerstone of this government, was the perfect equality of the free, sovereign, independent states which made it. They were unequal in population, wealth, and territorial extent. They had great diversities in interests, pursuits, institutions, and laws, but they had in common They had common interests, mainly exterior, which they proposed to protect by this common agent, constitutional united government without in any degree subjecting their inequalities and diversities to the federal control or action. The instant the government was organized at the very first Congress, the northern states evinced a general desire and purpose to use it for their own benefit and to pervert its powers for sectional advantage. And they have steadily pursued that policy to this day. They demanded a monopoly of the business of shipbuilding and got a prohibition against the sale of foreign ships to citizens of the United States, which exists to this day. They demanded a monopoly of the coasting trade in order to get higher freights than they could get in open competition with the carriers of the world. And now, today, if a foreign vessel in Savannah offers to take your rice, cotton, grain, or lumber to New York or any other American port for nothing, your laws prohibit it in order that northern ship owners may get enhanced prices for doing your carrying. Now, let's take this apart a little bit. One of the reasons for northern shippers getting prices was so there would be a tax base capable of building large frigates and a navy that would protect all shipping, including that of the southern states. And we saw this in operation under none other than Thomas Jefferson and later James Madison against the Barbary pirates. So this isn't entirely true. This stands the account between the North and the South under an ordinary and most favorable action, bounties and protection to every interest and every pursuit in the North to the extent of at least $50 million per annum, besides the expenditure of at least $60 million out of every $70 million of the public treasury among them, thus making the treasury a perpetual fertilizing stream for them and their industry and a suction pump to drain out the substance and parch up our lands. What they're talking about are that in various tax expenditures, the North seemed to benefit. Problem is, the South was perfectly able to have manufacturers. They chose not to. They wanted to go with slaves and land. And you'll recall from my earlier lectures, the South was vastly wealthier than the North if you include slaves and land. So how much was that income going to the North, which again is questionable. These numbers are highly suspect. But even if we accept them, how much of that was actually important because they were still being out-wealthed, if you want to use that phrase, by the South. With these advantages, ordinary and extraordinary, one would have supposed the North would have been content and would have at least respected the security and tranquility of such obedient and profitable brethren, but such is not human nature. They despised the patient victims of their avarice, and they soon began a war upon our political rights and social institutions. And they very soon began a war upon our political rights and social institutions. I got that. Marked by every act of perfidy and treachery, which could add to a darker hue to such warfare. In 1820, the Northern Party, and I mean by that the noun whenever else it is used or its equivalent in these remarks, the anti-slavery or abolition party in the North, endeavored to exclude the state of Missouri from admission to the Union because she chose to protect African slavery in the new state. This act of exclusion violated the express provisions of the Treaty of 1802, to which the national faith was pledged, violated the well-settled policy of the government, at least from the Adams administration to that day, and has since slavery was adjudicated by the Supreme Court of the United States, violated the Constitution itself. Okay, first of all, the constitutional principle was the Northwest Ordinance. That was territorial policy all the way up until the Dred Scott decision. And that said no slavery in the territories. You can't get around that. I don't care how he wants to jimmy this. It's ridiculous. Second of all, Missouri was admitted conditionally only because of the admission of Maine. They didn't say, oh, okay, slavery's okay. They said, all right, we're going to tolerate slavery in Missouri because Maine, a free state, is coming in. The Southerners would have had problems with Maine. So he's really lying here. But notice how he steadfastly wants to avoid the whole issue of slavery itself and what it meant and what it was. So it's not the express provisions of the Treaty of 1802. It is the express provisions of the Northwest Ordinance, which preceded the Treaty of 1802. The South at all times demanded nothing but equality in the common territories, equal employment of them with their property to that extended to the Northern citizens and their property, nothing more. In 1790, we had less than 800,000 slaves under our mild and humane administration of the system. Mild and humane, maiming people, killing slaves, whipping them, mild and humane. They have increased above 4 million. I don't know why he thinks that's a position for slavery, that the numbers increased because the laws protected slavery. That's an argument against it. The argument should be, gee, we didn't have any laws protecting slavery and it increased anyway, showing what a great institution it was. Sorry. What shall be done with them? We must expand or perish. There you have it, folks. Put it right there. The South, this guy, Robert Toombs, admits that without expansion, slavery dies. This is the same exact argument used by Lenin wrongly against capitalism. Oh, the capitalists, if they don't expand, they die. No, it was the communists who had to expand or die, because if contained within itself, communism dies wherever it is used. Cuba, USSR, the Cold War bloc countries, it would have died in China if they hadn't amended it dramatically to include a variation of capitalism that is still to this very day causing them to start to come apart. Only North Korea now remains, really not as an example of communism, but of absolute tyrannical dictatorship. So the South is trying to make the point, stupidly, that without expansion, slavery dies. This is exactly what the Northerners said. You guys can't survive if you can't take more and more and more property, because your institution is inherently demonic, evil, and flawed. He's admitting it. We demand the equal rights with the North to go into common territories with all of our property, slaves included, and be there protected in its peaceable empowerment by the federal government until such territories may come into the Union as equal states. Then we admit them with or without slavery, as the people themselves may decide for themselves. Okay. So first of all, he says slaves are what? Did you catch that? Property. Property. They are not what the Constitution calls them. Persons. Got to be very careful of this. The Constitution, the founders knew what was what. And they said slavery is a system in which persons are held in a period of servitude. They never used the word slave, and they never defined slavery as property. They knew better. Who did that? Justice Taney in the Dred Scott case. So see, he now is citing Taney here and popular sovereignty, but only under Taney's express, illegitimate, stupid ruling in Dred Scott, where he said, oh, Congress can't prohibit slavery and the people can't prohibit slavery. Only a state after it's been a state can prohibit slavery. In other words, let's weight the system as much as we possibly can toward allowing slavery in and making it very hard to get rid of it. By the laws of the nation founded on natural justice, no nation nor the subjects or citizens of any nation have the right to disturb the peace or security of any other nation or people, much less to conspire, excite insurrection, discontent, or the commission of crimes among them, and all these are held to be good causes of war. Well, first of all, the South isn't a nation. Even if you buy Toombs's argument, which was wrong, they were independent states. Once they formed into a confederation or a nation, they, in essence, broke the Constitution right there. Had any one state resisted the federal government, it would have been crushed, as Andrew Jackson threatened to do back in 1832. By abolitionist societies and publications made by them by the public press through the pulpit and their own legislative halls in every effort, by reproaches, by abuse, by vilification, by slander, the disturbing of our society, our tranquility, to excite discontent between the different classes of our people, and to excite our slaves to insurrection. No nation in the world would submit to such conduct from any other nation. I will not willingly do so from this abolition party. First of all, it's not an abolition party. It's the government of the United States. Second of all, what you are stating, Mr. Toombs, is exactly what all the Hamas radical murder terrorists are stating today. All the people who want to shut down all discussion on campus use the same tactic, and that is to say, oh, merely talking about it or presenting evidence, that hurts our feelings. That means we can't hold our views in peace, so we got to prohibit you from talking about it. This is Fascism 101, folks. Don't kid yourself. The executive power, the last bulwark of the Constitution to defend against these enemies of the Constitution, has been swept away, and we now stand without a shield, with bare bosoms presented to our enemies, and we demand at your hands a sword for our own defense. And if you will not give it to us, we will take it by divine right of self-defense, which governments neither give nor can take away. Sorry, you're part of that country. And what you're saying is, oh, all the institutions of the country are against us, meaning the country does not agree with our position. So we're just going to take our ball and go home. Garbage. Therefore, redress for the past and present wrongs demands resistance to the rule of Lincoln. No, it's resistance to the rule of the government of the United States. And his abolition horde over us. No, it's the government of the United States. He comes at their head to shield and protect them in perpetuation of all these outrages upon us. No, he actually said he would let you keep your slaves, you idiot. And what is more, he comes at their head to aid them in consummating their avowed purposes by the power of the federal government. What he's saying here is he is admitting that if the federal government is in the hands of anyone but pro-slavers, it will automatically work against slavery. He's admitting this, and it will, because the appointment of federal marshals and federal judges and customs officials and all sorts of other federal bureaucrats work against slavery if it is in the hands of anybody but a slave power conspiracy. He admits it. He's making the case that Lincoln makes. Their main purpose, is indicated by all their acts of hostility to slavery, is final and total abolition. Well, yes, it is, but only through the law. What he's saying is we can't tolerate the law. The law is bad for us. And by the way, they are breaking the law by having slaves, because the Constitution does not say slavery. Okay. His party declares that their acts prove it. He's declared that I accept his declaration. The battle of the irresponsible conflict, of the irrepressible conflict, has hitherto been fought on that side alone. We demand service in this war. Surely no one will deny that the election of Lincoln is the endorsement of the policy of those who elected him and is an endorsement of his own opinions. Well, yeah, that may be true. So the other side doesn't get an opinion. So the other side never gets to win an election. This is what Democrats say today. Oh, we can't let Trump in. We can't let Trump win. My gosh, what'll he do if he wins? Well, that's for you to find out. We put up with what you did when you won, which was lawlessness and terrorism for 4 years. Let's see what happens when the other side wins. Hitherto, they've carried out this warfare by state action, by individual action, by appropriation, by incendiary torch, poison bowl. They were compelled to adopt this method because the federal executive and federal judiciary were against them. Yes. Slave power conspiracy held the executive and held the judiciary for a lot of years. So you're again admitting if you lose an election, you're going to take your ball and go home, because you can't stand to lose an election because you're in the wrong. They will have possession of the federal executive with this vast power, patronage, prestige of legality, its army, its navy, revenue of the 4th of March next. Hitherto, it's been on the side of the Constitution. No. Hitherto, it's been on the side of slavery, but not the Constitution and the right. After the 4th of March, it will be in the hands of your enemy. Will you let him have it? No, it'll be in the hands of the people. They rule. They set what they wanted. Now you're saying the people don't get to get what they want. Then strike while it is yet today. Withdraw your sons from the army, your navy, every department in the federal service. Keep your own taxes in your own coffers. Buy arms with them. Throw the bloody spear into this den of incendiaries, of assassins, and let God defend the right. God did defend the right. You lost. But we were told that secession would destroy the fairest fabric of liberty the world ever saw, and that we were the most prosperous people in the world under it. The arguments I now hear in favor of this northern connection are identical in substance to almost the same words which were used in 1775 and 1776 to sustain the British connection. The very men who use these arguments admit that this Constitution, this compact, is violated, broken, and trampled underfoot by the abolition party. No, they don't. They don't say that. Shall we surrender the jewels because the robbers and incendiaries have broken the casket? That's just nonsense. Is this a way to preserve liberty? I would leave surrender it back to the British Crown as to the abolitionists. Interesting. I take slavery over allowing my own slaves to go. Isn't that interesting? I will defend it from both. I mean, this sounds so much like what Germany was doing at the end of World War II. They would rather herd Jewish prisoners further west to keep them from falling into the hands of the Russians who would liberate them so that they could kill them later than to just save their own lives. That's how off they were. I will defend it from both. Our purpose is to defend those liberties. What baser fate could befall us or the great experiment of free government than to have written upon its tomb fell by the hands of abolitionists and the cowardice of its natural defenders. Well, no, it fell by the insanity of pro-slave voices like yours. If we quail now, this will be its epitaph. We are said to be a happy and prosperous people. We have been because we have hitherto maintained our ancient rights and liberties. We will be until we surrender them. They are in danger. Come, free men, to the rescue. If we are prosperous, it is due to God, ourselves, and the wisdom of our state government. I have already vainly asked for the law of the federal government that promotes our prosperity. I have shown you many that regard the prosperity, many that drain our coffers as for the benefit of our bitterest foes. I say bitterest foes, show me the nation in the world that hates, despises, vilifies, or plunders us like our abolition brethren in the North. There is none. Well, folks, there was no nation in the world at this time that was still holding slaves. No advanced nation. Yeah, there were kingdoms in Africa and there were parts of China, but there were no advanced nations, no Western nation that still permitted slavery in any way, shape, or form by this time. That's what they thought of this. I can go to England or France or any country in Europe with my slave without molesting or violating any law. No, you cannot. They banned slavery. I can go anywhere except in my own country. Will I am called glorious union. Here alone am I stigmatized a felon. Here alone am I an outlaw. Well, that's because you're holding another human as property. Here alone am I under the ban of an empire. Here alone am I neither security nor tranquility. This goes back to this whole notion that if you disagree with these guys at all, you're violating their tranquility. This is John C. Calhoun's argument, which is taken up totally by the left and the Marxists today, that we cannot allow open discussion of anything because we'll lose. So we can't allow us to lose. So we must prohibit open discussion of things like transoid rights or homosexual rights or whatever it is, Hamas. Here alone are organized governments ready to protect the incendiary, the assassin who burns my dwelling or takes my life, or those of my wife and children. Here alone are hired emissaries paid by brethren to glide through the domestic circle and intrigue insurrection with all of its nameless horrors. There is nothing threatening their life. The only thing threatened is their property in humans. They weren't even, abolitionists weren't even threatening their property. Nobody was saying we're going to take all of your land, only your people that you are calling property. They couldn't have that. That's what they viewed as threatening their life. My countrymen, quote, if you have nature in you, bear it not. Withdraw yourselves from such a confederacy. It is your right to do so, your duty to do so. I know not why abolitionists should object to it unless they want to torture and plunder you. Maybe because they want to do the right thing. Maybe because they think holding other people's property is wrong. Maybe that just could be. Maybe because they want to uphold the Constitution that said that these are persons, not property. As for me, I will take my place in the great conflict for rights which you may assign. I will take none of the federal government during Mr. Lincoln's administration. If you desire a senator after the 4th of March, you must elect one in my place. Okay, well, bye. I'd play that clip of Powers Booth in Tombstone. Well, bye. I've served you in the state and national councils for nearly a quarter of a century without once losing your confidence. I am yet ready for the public service. When honor and duty call, I will serve you anywhere where it will not degrade or dishonor my country, make my name infamous forever, if you will, but say, Georgia, I pointed out your wrongs, your danger, your duty. You've claimed nothing but the rights be respected and that justice be done. Emblazon it on your banner, fight for it, win it, or perish in the effort. All right, next time we will read from The Other Side Against Secession by Alexander H. Stevens. But it's truly amazing the lengths that people will go to oppress other human beings and even to kill them, and claim that that's just so okay, that's just all right because it's my rights. It has to do with my rights that don't exist. Be one thing if they existed. We might have an argument if they existed. but they didn't. All right. Make sure you check out the VIP over at the Wild World of History. There's some 50 lessons over there that aren't part of the curriculum. Remember, if you're an instructor, a homeschooler, or an educator, I have a full curriculum in U.S. history for a year, 2 semesters, and a full curriculum in world history for a year, 2 semesters. They all come complete with me teaching the lessons in video that's already in Patriot's history and in our workbooks with some added material. So check it out. There is until June 1st, the convention price of $179 in place. After June 1st, not only does the convention price go away, but we have to raise prices. We're just getting hammered in this Biden economy. I saw a pretty funny sign at a recent convention, which was get the Biden discount, add 20%. And that's basically where we are. So we will be doing that. So get your curriculum now. You'll want it. And if you want more political commentary, go to the Wild World of Politics and sign up for the Insider. Folks, we've got all sorts of lessons, including integrity, the Winston Churchill, Reagan, the American president, and most recently, globalism. It's past, present, and future. Take a look at it. Sign up, only $6 a month. You'll love this stuff. And I'll see you guys back here on Wednesday.